The Ardennes Offensive was the last major German offensive campaign on the Western Front during World War II. The battle lasted from 16 December 1944 to the 28th of January 1945 and would be a cold, hard-fought, bloody battle that would cost many thousands of soldiers and civilians their lives. On December 18th, 1944, without really knowing what was going on, the 101st Airborne were dropped off in the town of Neuville. They would quickly find out that the Germans had pushed through their lines with overwhelming forces. And in the next few weeks, Easy Company would be part of a cold and bloody battle now known as the Battle of the Bulge. They would be tasked with the defense of the town of Baston and the surrounding area, eventually being pushed back all the way to the town of Foy, where they would hold on to their lines for several weeks to come. But on the 12th of January, the by then exhausted 101st were ordered to assault the town of Foy. They were expecting to be eventually pulled off the line, but they still were needed in this attack. And after 2 hours of hard fighting, the town of Foy was taken and in Easy Company's hands. And in the next 3 days they would be ordered to retake Neuville and Rochamps. They would succeed and would be taken off the line on January 17th, 1945. In today's video I want to look back on a video I did more than 7 years ago, where I had a look at the foxholes at Foy. It was in these woods where the 101st valiantly held off the German army during the Battle of the Bulge. So I went to visit the place in 2014, and doing a walk around video like that was quite a rarity, and I was probably one of the first to do so. Of course, like many, I was mainly there to please the 101st crowd, and I went along with the typical tourist board information. But even then I was somewhat skeptical of the originality of the foxholes in the area.
And many of you are skeptical about these foxholes because they are not legit. And because many of them were dug by metal detectors. People are searching with metal detectors. And some holes were dug by reenactors and other people that...
Today everybody and their mother made a video about this place, and most of the time throwing any skepticism out of the window or common sense even. So in this video I wanted to have again a look at the history and the originality of this place, going just a little further than popular history would like me to go. Today this spot is a paid attraction, and at the time of this video it was fenced off last year. Tickets to enter the area can be bought at the Baston War Museum, and once you enter the area you can find several foxholes. A newly added tour can be followed by phone if the Wi-Fi signal holds up. Keep in mind that if you just walk into the woods outside of the fenced off area, you will find several other holes, all there to be viewed free of charge. But let's head back to 2014, when this place was an entire different animal. It wasn't a really big tourist trap like it is today. It was also not the first time I visited this place. I was back here in 2009, and I can say back then there wasn't much to find here. The forest was just a forest, mostly overgrown. I did find some foxholes, most of them I know now to be fake, and I say fake because in 2007 reenactors came here and dug most of these holes during a reenactment. Most of these holes are still being maintained and represented as real today. So to actually show you, I want to focus on one strip of the forest in particular, because that's often the spot people point out are the genuine foxholes. So I went looking on YouTube and Google to compare videos and pictures. I also went on Google Earth to compare how the forest looked in 2009. But it's hard to actually say if any of the foxholes clearly visible now were actually there in 2009, when the area had much more overgrowth. So I started looking through several videos and noticed that in one video one foxhole that was there in 2009 seems to be gone in 2011. And when you compare the area to a video taken in 2023, it's an entirely different area. And the foxhole in particular is just a shallow hole now. Also have a look at the changes made to the space in the foreground of the video, around the third foxhole. When one tree was removed, they created a giant foxhole, and they seem to have removed the hole that was in front of the tree before. You can find several of these examples and videos all over YouTube, because in almost all these videos the forest looks different every time. But when you move further into the video, you will also see this foxhole popping out of thin air, which also wasn't there in the 2011 video. So my essential conclusion now, with me having looked through these videos, is that the foxholes along the road in the beginning of the path all seem to be pretty consistent from 2010 until now. But this only counts for a small minority. So in my opinion, seeing that half of them were recreated makes the rest of these holes also really suspect. One thing you guys really like to point out to me is that I need to use my common sense, and a foxhole would simply not survive 70 years alone in a forest. But I do not fully agree with that, because it really depends on the conditions. A unpopular site that's undisturbed, these foxholes could probably survive. But a tourist trap filled with band of brother fanboys, yeah, you probably know the answer to that one. But to make a simple comparison, let's look at the trenches in Normandy, which are now just shallow trenches, and that's pretty much with preservation work maintaining the site. And that's also what they are doing here in Jack Woods. They are pretty much maintaining these foxholes. Position is also located in an actual tree farm, meaning that these trees get harvested once in a few decades. And sources say this area was actually harvested just after the war. And if you think about it, would these holes survive any harvesting process to begin with? If you look at Google Earth, you can see that the forest close to the old train station and the 101st monument was harvested not long ago. Back in 2011, these sections would have contained foxholes. You can actually see this in a video here on YouTube. Today nothing is left of that location, but rest assured these holes weren't even real to begin with. And this can actually be said about several other locations in the area, where somebody in the last 10 years made a conscious effort to start digging several of these foxholes, making the area even more suspect in my opinion. But I will be coming back to this in a short while, so keep this in mind. One thing we can do to verify the stories told now are true is to look at actual aerial photographs of the location. And wow, these were incredibly hard to find. Most of the pictures focus on the train station and not really on the battle situation we want to look at. But we can see differences in the then harvested areas and where they would have claimed real foxholes in 2011. There wasn't a forest in 1944. The same can be said about the forest to the southwest of the now fenced off area, where now most of the tour guides take some clueless tourists to show them foxholes and talk about the heroic standoff. There wasn't a forest in 1944. Funny how that works. For the actual spot our video is focused on, I ran into some problems because it proved to be difficult to find photographs with a decent quality. And the images I had, it looked like most of the forest wasn't a forest at all. It looked more like a narrow hedge growth to the side of the road. Because they were such bad quality, it was really up to my own interpretation what this part of the forest looked like, and if the strip was large enough to contain foxholes. But luckily enough I found a better quality image, which shows that it was a decent strip of forest. Still not big enough as it is today, but still bigger than it looked on the other image, and this strip could possibly have contained some foxholes. One thing I found to be really interesting is that you can see the path soldiers would have taken in 44, and you can clearly see the imprints in the snow. So now that we have established there was definitely some activity going from one part of the forest to another, I want to look at one foxhole everybody always photographs, which of course today is perfectly placed to look out over the town. And I have a feeling this was probably created during the reenactment we saw in the video earlier. Real proof is of course impossible to find, because back in 2007 there is a big chance nobody photographed it because there was simply nothing there, or because the overgrowth was too heavy. But all of this is just conjecture. What we can do is go back to the great quality aerial and compare it with Google, and we can see that the old outline of the forest doesn't really line up, and we can see that the original forest would have extended much further. And so, seeing that the forest would have ended much further than the foxhole is placed, this foxhole seemingly just looks too nice, and it's probably just placed here to do just that. It's merely a nice looking photo op. If we zoom all the way out and compare everything with today, we can actually see that most of the forest was cut down over the years, and we can see a general shape of what it looked like back in 44. If you move over to the old train station, where back in 2009-2011 people were going to look for foxholes and actually finding some in a few videos here on YouTube, it seems that in 44 there wasn't so much of a forest at all, and it only seems to consist out of a small line of trees and a just planted forest to the northeast. But that's about it, and if you ask me, if you look at all of this together, everything seems so artificial. So my final conclusion now is that probably every single foxhole here is faked. It's pretty much impossible in my opinion that these holes would have survived any harvest process. And I find that showing these holes to tourists or viewers on YouTube is just misleading. The guided tour people seemingly don't care about any historical accuracy whatsoever when they show these holes in parts of the forest where there wasn't even a forest to begin with. So that's already pretty dubious. And that the Best Stone War Museum is asking money for the other part of the forest feels even more dubious. One thing that slowly came to my realization when I was researching for this video is how easy people are manipulated, and within a span of 10 years people will place immense value on a spot that today is just artificially created. Today I can't even imagine people having the same activities here than they did 10 years ago, because people would have had all sorts of activities here, from just walking their dog to reenactments and just having fun. Today all of this would be ridiculed. One thing I want to show you is the reaction people gave to the reenactors video when I posted it on social media. And yeah, you probably can guess it. It wasn't friendly. So a lot of these comments were saying they were destroying a historical location and that the reenactors pretty much ruin everything. But come on people, this is also absurd to me, because they never really seem to think about that this place was just a forest, which did not stood any other band of brothers. It was just a place to reenact, a place where people could easily find the reenactors, and it was pretty much closely located to the main road. Reenactments still happen all over the place, you do realize that. Why is this place so special today? That we as people simply can't touch it anymore, when in reality it's far worse now than it was back then. So the last thing I want to add is that this video will probably get swarmed with toxic people, and this has also something to do with my last video. But if you watch that video, you know that the community that this subject is so-called protected by is also extremely toxic. And every time I post something about this subject, it will get attacked by fanboys and so-called tour guides that apparently feel the need to protect this lie. They will make up some of the most hilarious lies. So that's going to be a real treat. If you watched my last video, some of the people that were sending me death threats were so-called respected tour guides. But seeing their behavior, they are nothing than local con men, trying to make a quick buck on a lie. But they know everything they sell is just a pile of crap.
That is one big pile of shit.
Since this video was demonetized and it's a re-upload video, I really want to do a small little update. And I'm not here to talk demonetization. The reason why this video was getting demonetized is pretty much because of the Band of Brothers sound effects and shooting effects. It triggers the huge bots for some reason, but you can find more on that in the comments if you want to talk YouTube shenanigans. The main reason Future Me is here because I noticed something interesting, and that's the negative review removal that will happen on Google Maps when you review Jack Woods. Mine was removed for really suspicious reasons, and I saw multiple removals since I last looked at this. And to just make sure this wasn't just a glitch, I made a second review with my second YouTube channel account, and that one was also removed. I find this to be really suspect, and just another reason why I think this place is just a commercial dirty money grab, owned by a company that also flags negative reviews placed on Google. You can't make this stuff up, and to just wave my awesome level 8 local guide status in your face, I have a local guide status, but even that could not save me from being deleted. It's one big joke that just gets better and better. But since this is a re-upload video, I wanted to do this little section and update. And since I'm here, I also want to wish you guys a great new year and see you all in 2024.
Crap. That is one big pile of shit.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. I want to especially thank our supporters, and if you also want to support the channel, have a look on our merch store or become a channel member or join our Patreon. Of course, liking and commenting also goes a long way. I hope to see you guys all in the next one.